Finally, Met fans, we break the losing streak at 7 as the Mets beat up on the Philadelphia Phillies with 7. That's right, 7 solo home runs in this ball game as the Mets win 11-4 in that stink ass city of Philadelphia. Zach, how are you feeling tonight, buddy?
Much better than I have been lately. I mean, that was a game that the Mets needed to win, and they didn't just scratch one out. They came out there and they hit the ball with authority. I mean, there wasn't much hitting with runners in scoring position because not many people were getting in scoring position. It was a lot of just big hits and just taking advantage of what the pitcher was giving you, and they just kept punishing bad pitch after bad pitch after bad pitch. And Juan Soto in game 77 has finally arrived as a New York Met. I mean, he has been, you want to call it underwhelming, whatever you want to call it. The analytics have been good, but tonight was a night to remember for Juan Soto's fans and Mets fans. Just the performance he gave was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. He earned his blue stripes as a New York Mets tonight. And 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. He was locked in. And you know what? Let's give credit to Francisco Lindor hitting the home run. That streak stays alive. Brandon Nimmo, Alvarez hitting a bomb late in the game. Just to,
Big one.
That's a nice look to see. I know it was against the end of a career of Taiwan Walker, but it's
Met for life.
It's definitely nice to see. But all around, Alonso with 2 hits. Soto went 4 for 5. Nimmo went 2 for 4 with 2 home runs. Lindor with a home run, 2 hits, 3 RBIs. It was just an all-out barrage. And I said this during the pregame, Zach. They had to play angry today. They had to be pissed off. And you know what? They quoted themselves saying they were going to win today, right? So you lose today, you're going to get killed for that comment.
Wow.
And, that comment could have went a lot of different ways. That could have revved up the Phillies clubhouse very easily. And you know what? Chris got killed by Philly fans by posting what he posted. He put it in the group chat that we have. That he posted on TikTok and on YouTube.
Mendoza saying, yeah.
Killed him because he said he was very confident about today's game. You know what? He wasn't the only one. There was a lot of Met fans that were very confident they were going to win this game for whatever reason. Whatever reason you could have gave why you were confident. I said it before. I'm not sure what we were going to get out of Griffin Cannon. I felt like the offense had to take over a game, take over this series. They did it in game 2. And you know what? We broke the losing streak. And you know what? That's in the past now. You're going to have one of those bad stretches. That should be our bad stretch, right? You win all these games early on to afford to lose 7 games in a row, right? And now we're right back tied for first place and have the opportunity of taking back the NL East and winning the series before we head home to face the Braves.
Yeah, with our ace on the mound tomorrow too, and David Peterson, who's been phenomenal as of late. And even with how poorly the Mets have been playing in June, I mean, with 7 losses in a row, that losing streak being broken tonight, they're still actually after tonight they have a winning record in June. This is a team that when they're playing bad, they still have a winning record. So that should speak volumes to how good this team actually is. I mean, obviously things have not been good as of late, but to come out tonight and just put all the haters, all the negative Met fans to bed and show you what they can truly do when they're swinging a good bat and they're taking advantage of what was a poor performance by the Philadelphia Phillies pitching staff. And even when Griffin Canning didn't have his best stuff tonight, kept us in the game, and the bats, they did what we wanted them to do all season, as pick up a pitcher when they're not at their best. And that's what we got tonight.
Yeah, exactly. He grinded today, and that was one of the better performances in a while for Griffin Cannon. It wasn't the length. It doesn't look like a look. If you look at his line, you're gonna be like, oh, that the Mets might have lost that game. But just the way he battled, and this is why stats don't tell the whole story, right? You see when you watch a game, and you know what? Griffin Cannon pitched a lot better than his line. You gotta remember, one of those unearned runs was McNeil missing that ball in center field. That was a big key of him, getting that extra run on the line. But obviously only 3 earned in his final line. But that's why you got to watch. That's why you got to look at the game, and stats don't tell the whole story. And Griffin Canning
One
decided
hundred
games.
percent.
When Schwarber hit that ball down the right field line, I mean, that was almost a tie ball game. That could have changed the whole complexion of the game. This might have not have been a blowout game for the New York Mets. This might have been an even closer game going into the late innings. And you know what? Griffin Canning, he smiled because he knew. He's like, "Ooh, that was a bad pitch," and luckily he got away with it, and he still battled and got out of that with no major damage. But overall, good job by Griffin Cannon keeping us in the ball game so the bats can continue to get going. It would be nice if we hit home runs with runners in scoring position or runner on base. That would be nice. But you know what? We're gonna take it today. We're gonna take it tonight. Right? Tomorrow, have people on base while you hit those home runs. But Zach, we've seen this before, but from the New York Mets, they'll score 11 runs tonight, and then they forget how to play baseball the next day. And that is something that they cannot do. They got to take this momentum and bring it into tomorrow, which, as you said, the ace on the mound for the New York Mets in David Peterson.
Yeah, let's pick him up after what was a good start. Should have been a win in his column, but wasn't. And you just want the bats to keep rolling. And I don't see any way of the Phillies slowing them down, because this is what we've needed from the top of the order all season. We haven't had our top 4 or 5 hitters be on a roll like they were tonight. We haven't seen Lindor, Nimmo, Soto, and even Alonso, who didn't drive in any runs. He didn't have any home runs, but he had a nice night. I think he had 3 hits tonight. So we haven't seen that yet, where the top of the order is able to do enough damage that the bottom of the order doesn't matter. And that's where the Mets' true weakness is. And if the top of the order can keep hitting like this, it's only going to get better and better, because we have reinforcements on the way, obviously on the pitching side, and then Vientos hopefully coming back early next week to help lengthen out that lineup and provide stability at that third base position, regardless of what his numbers look like. He's a much better hitter than both Beatty and Mauricio. So I think it can only go up from here as Mets fans, for this Mets team. And, saying that it can only go up from here with scoring 11 runs tonight is a bold statement, but it truly can only go up from here, because the Mets haven't done this yet this season. They haven't been able to produce in this type of fashion where they've been able to just punish and punish and punish. They've kind of squeaked across a ton of runs on some poor defensive plays and some, quote unquote lucky hits. But tonight they got their pitches and they did damage every single time it was left over the middle of the plate.
Yeah, and this team's going to go based on the top of the order doing what they have to do. Again, this team can be unstoppable if the guys at the top of the order do what they did tonight. And I'm not saying home run after home run, but, can you remember a game where all 4 at the top of the lineup did this in a game? No. This is the first time we've seen where, I'm not saying back to back home runs, but, where they all looked great at the plate, and if this can continue. And again, I'm not talking about the home runs, but just putting really good at bats together, driving in those runs that they consistently left on base for a while. It's never been all 4 guys at the top. It's been, 1 or 2 guys at a given time. Sometimes mostly 1 guy in the top 4 that's been damaging, and mostly Pete Alonso that has done most of that damage at the top for the lineup. But again, all you need is 2 to 3 guys doing it at the same time, and we're not going to be talking about the bottom of the order, right? We're not going to be killing all the guys that we shouldn't expect to do so much. A guy like Alvarez is supposed to be, a big part of this lineup, but you're not going to be talking about Tyrone Taylor. You're not going to be talking big about Jeff McNeil or Brett Beatty or, anybody else that's at the bottom of the order, because the top of the lineup is what is going to carry this team long term. And you see what this lineup can do when those guys get going, Zach, and we can all appreciate that.
Yeah, and on top of all of that, the great performance by the offense tonight, the pitching staff, even with Griffin Canning's allowing the 4 runs tonight, 1 unearned, 3 earned. Mendoza, giving him the chance to go into that 6th inning and get through it, but also learning from his mistakes that came up in that Brave series with letting Peterson go into the 8th inning and not having someone ready. He had Brazoban ready tonight to go. Canning came in. I believe it was a walk, if not mistaken, or whatever it was. He allowed the first batter he allowed them to get on base, and immediately Brazoban was ready. He was good to go, and he came in and he shut the door, and there was nothing past that. After that fifth inning, there were no more runs scored by the Phillies, and the bullpen did what we thought they could do tonight, and they shut the door and allowed the offense to get to work and just kind of put this game away.
Yeah, I mean, Brazoban was outstanding. That was a big moment in the game as well.
Mm-hmm.
2 innings, 1 hit, 2 strikeouts, didn't give up any runs. Obviously, the Mets didn't give up any more runs. Stanek came in. I know, the game was kind of out of hand, but, it was nice to see Stanek throw a couple of a nice inning because, again, we need Stanek to get right in this bullpen because there ain't a lot of guys that Mendoza can trust at this point right now. Reed Garrett's going through it right now. Jose Butu is kind of, back and forth, have a good day, have a bad day. So you need 2 or 3 guys that you can trust other than Diaz in this bullpen at the moment when other guys are going through it right now and trying to get out of the rut. I was talking about this in pregame when it comes to Diaz because we haven't seen a lot of Diaz, especially over this 7-game losing streak, because the Mets haven't really given opportunities to put him in the game. Mendoza's putting them in tie games, in blowouts, just trying to keep them, ready and keep them, actually have game pitches instead of just, throwing bullpens probably, because Diaz at his best likes to pitch a lot and pitch often. And what I concerned myself with, and I was worried, I was talking to my dad about this when we were watching the game. I was like, I'm a little nervous if this game's going to remain closer. We have a 2 or 3 run lead, and Diaz is going to come in because what happens when he doesn't pitch a lot? He kind of gets wild and things can get out of control. This is something that we should worry about. I know this is not trying to bring up, it's not a negative conversation. It's just a fact that
it's an observation.
Correct. It could be a 3-2 ball game tomorrow, and we need Diaz, and he really hasn't pitched in a high leverage situation, about a week.
Yeah. And that's no fault to Diaz because he's someone over his career who likes to pitch frequently, and even after the patellar tendon injury, he's someone that needs that extra time, those extra reps to get into a groove. So you want to throw him out there when he's in that good groove, not just coming in ice cold, not pitching in a few days. And he got that first game in Atlanta. I think he pitched 1 game in the Rays series too. So he's not completely cold, but yeah, you don't want him coming in, without pitching in 6, 7, 8 days where we're relying on him to shut the door, and he doesn't have those reps under his belt recently where he can just kind of continue with what he's been doing. He needs to kind of find it again. So it was a good night being able to just avoid getting into the A guys in the bullpen. Your Garrett's, even though he's had been shaky lately, and then obviously Diaz. Hopefully, they're both ready to go tomorrow, and the Mets can put the bullpen in a position where they don't have to be spot on, where they can just kind of bend, don't break kind of situation where they don't have to shut the door completely, that the door's already, partially shut for them because of the offense. And, there's a tall task coming tomorrow with Jesus Luzardo, who has been up and down as of late, but is a good pitcher. And the Phillies have been able to turn him into what is looking like a potential ace for their staff, once Wheeler eventually leaves and with Nola being injured. So, it's not easy going against them tomorrow, but after the performance they put up today, you expect them to be able to get to him early and hopefully knock him out and get to that bullpen where the Mets were able to do a bunch of damage too.
Yeah, that's exactly what they need to do. Luzardo can be excellent and he can be bad. Let's be honest. He has really good outings, but he has blow up outings as well. And the Mets, they've done it in this, against Wheeler too. They got his pitch count up rather quickly, and you got into the bullpen that is kind of, it's not a really great bullpen. They're in the bottom half of the league in ERA and bullpen. So that's where you got to get to. You got to get Luzardo out. Hopefully he scored a couple of runs during that time he's in the game, and then get to the bullpen that's not really good for the Phillies, and that's when the Mets can capitalize. And they did that against the starter today, and then they also did it against the bullpen. So yeah, I completely agree with you, and I do wonder, if this lineup can do it again tomorrow, right? The inconsistency is the biggest issue, regardless of who's on the mound. Like you can have Zach Wheeler, you can have one of the worst pitchers in baseball. The Mets will make him look like Cy Young. Like that has been the trend this year, and hopefully it doesn't happen because of the fact that we need this series, right, for our mental health. We
Yeah,
just need a
100%.
series win, especially thinking that we're gonna, we kind of lost the division lead for a day, and hopefully it was gonna be that much worse because it
Mhm.
felt like Armageddon. It felt like rock bottom for this team after yesterday. The way the Phillies just, I mean, it was kind of similar what the
Rolled
Mets
up,
did
yeah.
today, right? It was kind of a close game, and then all of a sudden, the snap of a finger, the game got away from both teams in 2 days. So it just shows you how fast things can change in a matter of one game. And that's what the Mets did tonight, just like the Phillies did to them yesterday.
Yeah, it'd be great to put this to bed, put this losing streak to bed, because we lost 7 in a row, and it is what it is. There's ups and downs to the season, but it's not turning a bad situation worse. They came back tonight. They tied the division lead. They're ahead in the NL East. What that means doesn't mean much here in the middle of June. We're not even halfway through the season, so. But to come out tomorrow, swing some good bats, and hopefully take another win would be great. We're up 5-1 in the division series against the Phillies if we were to win tomorrow, and just kind of put those negative thoughts to bed, because then we have a lead coming back home where the Mets have been phenomenal. They've only lost 2 series this year at home against the Diamondbacks and the Rays, obviously, where they got swept, and I don't expect that to happen. That the Mets aren't going to lose at home. They play phenomenally at home, and I expect another sold-out crowd in the middle of the week. Summer's about to start, and the Mets fans are going to bring it. And you saw how they were hitting tonight with the warmer weather. It's finally allowing these guys to drive the ball over the fence, and they're coming back to hot New York, and hopefully they can keep it up. And I'm ready for the stretch of games, because even though we get out of this rough stretch, this tough stretch of Braves, Phillies, and then Braves again, we have, I guess, what would be an easier series in Pittsburgh than back home against the Brewers, and what will be a pivotal Subway Series, not necessarily for division purposes, but for just a stake to claim of who owns New York. We want to get on a hot streak before we face those Yankees again, 4th of July weekend. And we don't want to go in there cold, on a losing streak, or, maybe behind in the division, have to press a little bit. Let's get out ahead. Let's get a couple more games under our belt. The Phillies and the Braves have to play each other, so they're going to beat each other up. Let's escape this series with hopefully what will be a series win, and then, keep it rolling when we get back home for what will be 3 out of 4 series in a row at home.
Yeah, and can't wait for that for sure. And what's also is interesting is the fact that were the Mets just that bad in Atlanta, and it wasn't the Atlanta Braves being actually looking like a good team, because I put that on the Mets more than anything else, because
100%.
they went to, I know they won today, I believe, but they got their ass kicked yesterday against the Marlins, coming off a sweep of the Mets. They couldn't feel any better. They felt like they were back in it, so to speak, and getting things right. And then they went out yesterday and got their ass kicked by the Marlins. So I take it as the Mets were just playing bad. They played terrible baseball in Atlanta. I mean, that was probably the worst series of the year, in my opinion. Just making mistakes, nobody playing well. It looked like they didn't even want to be on the field in Atlanta. And even in that Rays series at home, they kind of still looked like they had some energy, but they just had nothing for the Braves. So I just assumed that, I just look at it, the Braves are just not that good. To be quite honest, the Mets kind of, rolled over and just, played a role and say, we'll give you a couple of games. That's the way it felt. Like they just weren't playing baseball. But listen, the Mets got to take care of business still. They got back to where they needed to be when it comes to the division, right? We thought it was rock bottom. Kind of was at this point, but you set up yourself by winning a ton of games early on for a situation of a slump like this. And even with all of that, we're tied with the Phillies again, right? They got the lead. We took it right back, right? That's been a trend this year. And the Mets put themselves in a great position to win a series and head home where we play great. So I'm ready for it. I'm completely ready for it. And I do got to say that the thing that started it today was Lindor waking up. In my opinion, he's a catalyst. We all know he is, right? There was talk, and you probably seen this on social media. You probably listen to sports talk radio. People were talking about Lindor moving out of the leadoff spot. That was the conversation. Don't do that. This guy has been MVP caliber. Again, we all play baseball. We all watch baseball enough. You go through slumps, right? You can't. This isn't a 2-month slump where you got to make massive changes. This was, about
2-3 weeks.
Game, yeah, 2 weeks of games, not much. And Lindor has been MVP caliber. You can't mess with that. And you see what happens. He hit that ball to, left center, just a shot, and it just kicked off the Mets. Everybody took a sigh of relief when Lindor had that home run, not because of the streak and what happens when Lindor hits a home run. The Mets record is just amazing when he does that. It was just the fact that our leader, our captain, found it again, and everybody was like, "All right, we can all relax." And it just seemed like everything calmed down, even though we were losing the game. Everybody was calm and felt like they just had to do their job. And when you have mistake-free baseball, the Mets win. That's just a fact. If they limit the mistakes or have 0 mistakes in a game, they're almost unbeatable. And that's a fact. And let the other team make the mistakes. The Phillies made a couple of mistakes today. They didn't look good. And that's why we lost the Braves series. That's why we lost the Rays series, because of that. And playing mistake-free baseball today helped this team have a blowout win.
Yeah, mistake-free baseball and taking advantage of those mistakes that the Phillies made. That's what killed us in the Rays series. We allowed them to beat us in that first game with some mistakes. We allowed them to win in that second games by not taking advantage of the mistakes they handed us. And same thing goes for the Braves series. A few mistakes led to a loss in that first game and just kind of torpedoed us from there on. And this, like you said, Lindor is the catalyst to this lineup. He's the heart and soul of this lineup. And the Mets have now won 28 straight games when Lindor has hit a home run. When he's hitting the ball well, the Mets are winning games. It's as simple as that. And, like you said, the slump is a slump. These good hitters go into slumps during the season. It's a long season, 162 games. The guy also has a broken toe, and he's out there playing and grinding every day. So he's allowed to not play good baseball and kind of get into these funks offensively. But he's out there every day. He's grinding. He's playing good defense. And the guys behind him got to pick him up. And, hopefully that's a theme going forward, because I expect with this broken toe, he's not going to be 100% for a couple more weeks. But guys like Nimmo, who had an awesome day, Soto had a great day today, can pick him up and be those offensive providers outside of Alonso, because we haven't gotten much of that. And hopefully tonight's just more of what's to come, because hopefully a few of those home runs he hits tonight become home runs with guys in scoring position. Lindor, Nimmo getting on base ahead of him, because that's what the Mets need, because, we're not going to hit 7 solo home runs every night. It's going to be, times where we're scratching to get one across the fence. But if we can do it with guys on base, that'll be much better than what it was tonight, even in a night where we won 11-4. Yep. So we need to see guys getting on base and just, providing in different ways, because if we're not going to be able to, we're not always going to be here celebrating these wins. We're going to be talking about losses where we're losing by a run or two. But tonight they were able to get it done, and we just need more consistency from this offense. Something we haven't seen through the season. It's been the pitching picking up the hitters. Let's see the hitters pick up the pitching with a couple injuries and some reinforcements on the way, hopefully. And Manaya and Montas, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. The consistency is key for this offense. We all believe that this offense is going to be the key to the success of the New York Mets, right? We all believe the pitcher was going to take a step back. It has taken a step back. Obviously, with all the injuries, we got a lot more than what we expected early on, and it was a big reason why we won all these ball games. But the offense needs to take control of this team and, run with this offense that we all expect to be dominant and do what they need to do when it comes to winning ball games. And to recap the game here really quick for people who might watch it on a replay or missed it if they're just tuning in. Griffin Cannon, Bulldog tonight. You look at the line; doesn't look good, but he battled through a game where he had good stuff. It's just that he didn't have a lot of put away stuff during this game, but he was able to get big double plays. He was able to get the big out when needed. 5+ innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. Very good performance. Kept this team in the ball game until the offense took over the game as they did in this game to get the 11 runs with 7 solo home runs for the New York Mets. Juan Soto, ladies and gentlemen, Met fans, you can give him the golf clap. He became a New York Met today and earned his blue pinstripes as Juan Soto, 2 big home runs, 4 RBIs. Oh, yeah. He became a Met today by beating our big-time rivals in the Philadelphia Phillies. And it was nice to see the confidence in Juan Soto. Balls he missed that he thought he should have killed. And you seen him upset at the plate. You knew each time he got upset, he was launching that ball, and he did it tonight. And it was wonderful to see. Let's not forget that Lindor started it going with the solo home run.
Yeah.
Started finally breaking out of his hidden slump. Nimmo with 2 home runs. Alvarez finally showing some power, which is a great sign. All around, top of the order, did what they needed to do. We didn't talk about the bottom of the order tonight because we didn't have to. And what about Jared Young, right? Everybody didn't want him in the lineup. He hit that home run as well to add on to the lead. Nice to see. Zach, your final thoughts of this 11-4 victory, and what do you expect tomorrow for our and the Mets?
My final thoughts are just one word and one word only. Juan Soto. 2 words, I guess. A name. Juan Soto. I mean, we need this from Juan Soto going forward. And tomorrow night against the lefty, who's Juan Soto has been good against. He's been good against lefties all year. Come out firing. We need him to continue this scorching hot June where he's been basically the best player in baseball. Just keep it going. Get this lineup going. Nimmo, Lindor, whoever's at the top of the lineup past Lindor, get on base for him and let him drive you guys in, because tonight we saw that from him with the solo shots. And then that 2-run single there in the top of the 8th or top of the 9th, whatever it was. He missed the pitch early in the at-bat, like you said, and then he was shaking his head. He was pissed at himself. He turned around, and then he got that pitch again, and he scorched it in the right field. Keep doing that. Keep working good at bats and take advantage of those pitches. You're going to get those pitches to hit. If you're seeing a ton of pitches like Soto will be, you're going to get pitches to hit. Drive him to the outfield. Don't drive him to the ground. Keep this offense moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with the Phillies, the way we swept them at home, and now we took 4 out of 5 and hopefully 5 out of 6, that would be – look, it's a good start because we all believe that this division is going to come down to the wire. It's going to be close the entire year. And what's important, we talked about this a couple of streams ago when it comes to other national teams, the tiebreakers. It's always crucial to have these tiebreakers, especially against your division rivals that are trying to fight for a division. And listen, if you take 5 out of 6 in the first 2 series of the year from Philadelphia, they got a long road back to try to finish the last 7 games, 8 games of for the next couple of series. That means they have to dominate those 2 series just to have the tiebreaker overall. And that's what the Mets got to continue to do. Win a series. You broke the loser streak. Nobody has to talk about that nonsense anymore. Now we can talk about tomorrow with our best pitcher on the mound in David Peterson against Jesus Luzardo. Mets win 11-4. 46-31 is our record tie with the NL East. And we are spamming those W's today, guys, for our boy Chris. And I will see you tomorrow. I'm not sure if everybody will, but I will do a pregame. I will do a postgame. So make sure you tune in tomorrow for the Amazing Mets pregame show and the Mets postgame show for all your Mets needs. Guys, we broke the streak. Thank God. Power was just all over the place in this game. Juan Soto became a Met. And Zach, I appreciate you coming in. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, guys, enjoy your night. Met fans, you can sleep nice. Enjoy your rest of your Saturday. And let's go Mets, guys. Have a great night.
Let's go Mets.
the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kitty